He has recorded over 1,500 songs, 1,500 songs on 470 different albums, and he sold over 50 million records in his time.
Johnny Cash, also known as the Man in Black, is a legendary figure whose profound voice and music that stirs the soul have left an indelible influence on the entire world. His life, which was full of both successes and challenges, has been the subject of a great number of individual accounts. Nevertheless, we are going to be concentrating on John Carter Cash, his only son, who has been living in his shadow for quite some time. Although audiences were captivated by Johnny's public struggles with addiction and redemption, very few people were aware of the devastating struggles that John faced behind the scenes. Over the course of many years, John Carter Cash struggled to overcome his own personal demons, while also bearing the burden of his legendary father's legacy. The path he took was not glamorous, despite the fact that he was raised in a world where fame, fortune, and immense pressure were all present. Suddenly, shocking new information has surfaced regarding the personal suffering and difficulties that he had to go through, revealing a heartbreaking story that many of his fans had not anticipated. During his efforts to preserve the Cash family name, what were the unseen conflicts that John had to contend with? What profound truths has he finally revealed, and how did his relationship with his famous parents influence the course of his life? Stay tuned as we uncover the untold story of John Carter Cash, a journey that will leave you speechless because it is filled with loss, resilience, and redemption. It was inevitable that John Carter Cash, who was born on March 3, 1970, would become one of the most recognizable names in the history of music. His life was intertwined with the legacies of two legendary figures, Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. Because Johnny Cash was the only child of his parents, Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, he entered the world under the spotlight. Growing up in the Cash household was anything but typical, despite the fact that the world had high expectations for him from the moment he was born. The early years of John's life were spent in the midst of the fame that his parents enjoyed. June Carter Cash brought her own rich legacy as a member of the famous Carter family, while Johnny Cash was at the pinnacle of his career. Johnny Cash was known for his deep, haunting voice and his rebellious persona. June Carter Cash was also a member of the Carter family. The two of them worked together to establish a musical empire that captivated audiences all over the world. Nevertheless, this meant that John's life was frequently filled with chaos. As a result of the family's habit of traveling frequently, their residence was frequently occupied by musicians, celebrities, and creative minds constantly coming and going. Although John's childhood was filled with glitz and glamour, it was also marked by the pressures of trying to live up to the monumental achievements of his parents. He was a young boy when he watched his father perform on stage and command audiences with his commanding presence. He looked up to his father as a role model. However, the specter of Johnny's fame cast a significant shadow. At a young age, John was aware of the fact that his surname was associated with certain expectations. These expectations included the expectation that he would one day carry the torch and continue the Cash legacy. However, the life that took place behind the scenes was not always as peaceful as it appeared to be. John was able to observe the more negative aspects of fame, which was caused by Johnny's struggles with addiction, which frequently caused tension in the household. Although his parents had a profound love for him, the demands of their careers and the struggles they faced in their personal lives didn't always leave much room for a traditional family life. John was forced to navigate the complexities of growing up with two of the most celebrated yet deeply flawed figures in the world. This environment shaped John's perspective and forced him to navigate these challenging situations. John discovered that music was a source of comfort even in the midst of these difficulties. Having been exposed to a variety of musical instruments and hearing the voices of his parents, he developed a deep appreciation for the art form that would eventually become his own path. On the other hand, as he got older, the weight of his family's legacy would become both a blessing and a burden, laying the groundwork for the personal struggles and triumphs that would come to define his life. The world viewed Johnny and June Carter Cash as a power couple in the music industry. However, the reality behind closed doors was much more complicated than what was presented to the public. Being a member of one of the most famous families in the history of music inflicted a significant amount of emotional strain on John Carter Cash, a household that was struggling with addiction, emotional turmoil, and the unrelenting pressure of fame was hidden beneath the glitz and glamour that people were surrounded by. The fight against addiction that Johnny Cash fought was one of the most significant challenges that the Cash family faced. When John was born, his father had already been struggling with substance abuse for years, which frequently resulted in erratic behavior and strained relationships. John was born during this time. The struggle that Johnny was going through was always present in their lives, even though he did have periods of sobriety. The ups and downs of his father's struggle were something that John experienced firsthand when he was a child. Even though there were times when there was an overwhelming amount of love and joy, these moments were frequently obscured by the stress and unpredictability that addiction brought into the home. June Carter Cash, despite being a force that helped to stabilize the situation, also had her fair share of difficulties. In her role as a devoted wife and mother, she worked tirelessly to see Johnny through the most difficult times in his life, frequently putting her own requirements on the back burner. This dynamic presented John with a one-of-a-kind obstacle to overcome. He cherished his mother and admired her resilience, but he also witnessed the extent to which she gave up a significant portion of herself in order to maintain the cohesiveness of the family unit. His perspective on love, resiliency, and sacrifice was shaped throughout his life by the emotional weight of these family dynamics, which left an indelible impression on him. While going through all of these difficulties, the Cash household was anything but typical. John spent his childhood in the company of legendary musicians, such as Carl Perkins and Bob Dylan, who frequently paid a visit to their humble abode. The lines between one's personal life and professional life became more blurry in this environment, despite the fact that it was a rich source of creativity. Most of the time, there was very little room for privacy or normalcy because of the constant flow of visitors and the demands of fame. The love that Johnny and June had for their son was indisputable, despite the difficulties that they faced. Even though they made an effort to protect him from the more negative aspects of their lives, it was impossible to ignore the emotional undercurrents that were present. After some time had passed, John reflected on the ways in which these early experiences had molded him, and he described his childhood as being both inspiring and turbulent. Even at a young age, he was able to acquire the skills necessary to navigate the complexities of family loyalty, love, and the burden of legacy. John found that the pain that was kept hidden within his family served as both a source of strength and a source of internal conflict for him. Due to the fact that he was raised in the shadow of two figures who were larger than life, he bore the burden of their struggles while simultaneously attempting to discover his own identity. These formative years laid the groundwork for the personal challenges and eventual redemption that would define his journey. His journey would be defined by these difficulties. Although the Cash family may have been revered as icons by the rest of the world, John Cash regarded them as nothing more than his parents, imperfect, loving, and human. As a child who was raised in the shadow of two legendary figures, John Carter Cash was subjected to a great deal of pressure to live up to the reputation of his family. But the burden of the Cash legacy was not the only burden he carried. He also carried other burdens. In the same way that his father, Johnny Cash, did, John Cash had to contend with his own personal struggles, which included issues related to addiction and mental health. In his life, he would go through some of the most difficult times as a result of these personal challenges, which demonstrated that fame and talent could never protect a person from the anguish that lies within the human experience. The struggles that John's father went through were mirrored in John's own battle with addiction. When John was in his 20s, he started experimenting with substances like alcohol and drugs. At first, he did this as a means of coping with the overwhelming expectations that were placed on him. Due to the fact that he was the only child of Johnny and June Carter Cash, he was considered to be the carrier of the torch for their legendary legacy. However, he was not always willing to accept this role. An additional factor that contributed to John's descent into substance abuse was the pressure he felt to live up to the towering reputation of his father, in addition to the personal anguish he experienced from the deaths of both of his parents within a short period of time. John struggled with his addiction for a number of years, and as a result, he became engaged in a vicious cycle of dependency that had an impact on both his personal and professional life. Sometimes he felt as though he was unable to show vulnerability in front of the public because he was unable to escape the expectations of being a Cash. On the other hand, behind the scenes, he was struggling to find his own identity while simultaneously fighting the same demons that had plagued his father himself. John has admitted in interviews that there were times when he felt completely lost, uncertain as to whether or not he would ever be able to break free from the shadow of his family's legacy and his own inner turmoil. When John finally realized that he needed assistance, that was the moment that changed everything. After going through a particularly difficult time, he decided to seek treatment and started the challenging process of journeying towards sobriety. By participating in therapy, he was able to not only confront his addiction, but also investigate the underlying issues that had been the source of its fuel. These issues included grief, pressure, and a long-standing struggle with self-worth. John attributes his recovery to a combination of several factors, including the love of his family, the support of his professional community, and a renewed focus on his own creative passions. John was able to rediscover himself and his purpose through the process of sobriety. His experiences were channeled into music, writing, and production in the years that followed, and he discovered that creativity provided him with a sense of healing. Despite the fact that his road to recovery was not an easy one, it was a journey that taught him the importance of facing one's demons head-on and the value of using resilience. Today, John is not shy about talking about his struggles and is making use of his platform to bring attention to issues pertaining to mental health and addiction. Fans have responded positively to his openness and vulnerability, and many of them view his story as a demonstration of the strength that can be achieved through perseverance and hope. It is a stark reminder that even those who are born into fame and privilege are not immune to the challenges that life has to offer. As John Carter Cash's struggles demonstrate, John has emerged from his struggles stronger than his father did, demonstrating that it is never too late to seek assistance and rebuild one's life. John's father, too, has emerged stronger from his struggles. The journey that he has taken serves as a source of motivation, demonstrating that redemption is always possible, even in the face of tremendous pressure and profound personal suffering. Being the only child of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash has always been a blessing and a burden for John Carter Cash. His parents were Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash. With his family's name etched into the history of country music and beyond, he inherited a rich musical legacy that few people could ever dream of having. On the other hand, he was born into a great musical family. On the other hand, that same legacy came with a tremendous amount of pressure to honor the monumental accomplishments of his parents while simultaneously forging his own path in the shadow of their fame. The significance of John's family name was something that he was acutely aware of from a very young age. The entire world looked to him as the heir to Johnny and June's musical empire, and they anticipated that he would stay true to their principles and ensure that their legacy would continue to live on. This was not simply about preserving their music. Rather, it was about exemplifying the spirit of tenacity, authenticity, and raw emotion that characterized the Cash brand. The weight of this responsibility was overwhelming for John. The legendary status of his parents was used as a lens through which he carefully considered every action he took and every career decision he made. The management of his father's estate and the maintenance of the Cash family's legacy have been among the most important responsibilities that John has taken on. In the years following the passing of Johnny and June in 2003, John took on the responsibility of organizing the vast archives that belonged to his father. This entailed the supervision of recordings that had not yet been made public, as well as personal writings and memorabilia that provided additional insights into Johnny's life and career. In spite of the fact that it was a monumental responsibility, John took it on with the utmost dedication and diligence. Through the work that he has done, he has contributed to ensuring that the music and story of Johnny Cash continue to resonate effectively with new generations of fans. Having said that, fulfilling this role has not been without its difficulties. In many cases, John experienced an emotional toll as a result of the burden of managing such a significant legacy. The pressure of making decisions that would honor the memory of his parents, while also remaining true to his own artistic vision, is something that he has discussed. Sometimes he felt torn, as if he could never fully escape the shadow of his father's larger-than-life persona. This was because he had to strike a balance between preserving the past and building his future. John has, in spite of these obstacles, discovered ways to honor the legacy of his family while simultaneously establishing his own brand of identity. he is responsible for the production of a large number of tribute albums, has written books about his parents, and has even worked with other musicians to reinterpret the timeless music of Johnny Cash. Despite everything that has happened, he has maintained a strong dedication to preserving the spirit of his father and making sure that the world never forgets the man who was the inspiration for the legend. The legacy of Johnny Carter Cash is a source of pride for John Carter Cash, despite the fact that it is a burdensome burden. It serves as a constant reminder of his roots and the enduring power of the music that his family has traditionally produced. However, despite the fact that the burden may be significant, the opportunity to carry forward a legacy that continues to inspire millions of people all over the world is also significant. Despite the fact that the legacy of his family loomed large over him, John Carter Cash has worked tirelessly to carve out his own identity in the music industry and beyond. John is not content to merely ride on the coattails of his legendary parents. Rather, he has embraced his creative passions and built a multifaceted career as a musician, producer, and author. His work demonstrates a profound respect for his heritage, while simultaneously showcasing his one-of-a-kind voice and range of abilities. John's musical journey began at a young age, with both of his parents having a significant impact on his approach to songwriting and performance. On the other hand, he did not restrict himself to merely imitating Johnny Cash's performance style throughout his career. As an alternative, he discovered his place in the industry behind the scenes, becoming a producer who is in high demand. John has produced albums for a wide variety of artists over the course of his career, including names like Willie Nelson, Sheryl Crow, and Chris Christopherson, amongst others. There is no doubt that he inherited his father's commitment to authenticity and his profound understanding of the art of storytelling through music, both of which are characteristics that are reflected in his work. John's work on the American series, which is a collection of critically acclaimed albums that Johnny Cash recorded in the later years of his life, is one of the most notable projects that John has ever worked on. John, in his capacity as a producer, played a significant part in bringing these unfiltered and introspective recordings to life. In doing so, he contributed to the establishment of his father's legacy as an artist who remained emotionally significant and relevant right up until the very end. John has established himself as a writer in addition to his success in the music industry. There are a number of books that he has written, one of which is titled Anchored in Love, An Intimate Portrait of June Carter Cash. This book provides a profoundly personal perspective on the life and legacy of his mother. In addition to that, he has written both fiction and books for children, which demonstrates his versatility as a storyteller. It is through his writing that John has investigated topics such as love, loss, and redemption. He has done so by drawing from his own experiences in order to create narratives that are compelling. Those are not the only creative endeavors that John pursues. In addition to that, he has dabbled in the world of filmmaking, directing music videos, and working on documentary projects that honor the lives and legacies of his parents. Every endeavor he undertakes demonstrates his dedication to respecting his heritage while simultaneously forging his own path. It has been demonstrated that John Carter Cash is more than just the son of Johnny and June Cash through the extensive body of work that he has produced. He is a talented and dedicated artist in his own right, and he uses his creativity to keep the Cash family legacy alive while simultaneously establishing his own distinctive voice in the world of music and storytelling. In spite of the fact that John Carter Cash has been carrying the weight of his family's fame for many years, the story of his personal struggle and heartbreak lies hidden behind his smooth exterior. Johnny and June Carter Cash were revered by the entire world, but very few people were aware of the magnitude of the difficulties that their son had to overcome. Now, John has revealed the devastating details of his life in a series of candid revelations, which has left his fans in a state of shock and profound emotion. In 2003, John experienced one of the most heartbreaking moments of his life when he found out that both of his parents had passed away within a few months of each other. In the month of May, June Carter Cash passed away, and almost exactly 4 months after that, Johnny Cash also passed away. John was unable to fathom the magnitude of the loss. Suddenly, he was left without the two people who had played a significant role in shaping his life and guiding him through the most difficult times of his life. John later revealed in an emotional interview that he had experienced, "I felt as though my world had collapsed. Not only did I lose my parents, but I also lost my anchors. The enormous responsibility of managing his parents' estate and legacy added to the feelings of grief that he was already experiencing. John found himself thrust into the public eye at a time when he was having a difficult time going through the process of processing his loss. He was expected to preserve and celebrate the monumental contributions that his parents had made to music. He experienced a significant decline in his mental health as a result of the pressure, which was overwhelming. John has been very open about his struggles with anxiety and depression during this time period. He has described the experience as a dark, lonely tunnel that he had a hard time navigating. The unresolved tensions that existed within the Cash family added to the emotional weight that was already present. Within the Cash household, life was not devoid of difficulties, despite the fact that they loved and cared for one another. Despite the fact that Johnny had been sober for periods of time, the lingering effects of those turbulent years were deeply felt by everyone, especially John. Johnny's long battle with addiction had left scars, and despite the fact that he had achieved periods of sobriety, "I had the feeling that I was losing him to his demons at times," John admitted. "It was a difficult time." Additionally, even after Johnny had passed away, these recollections continued to haunt him, which made the grieving process even more complicated. John's struggle with his identity was another aspect of his life that was extremely detrimental. He frequently had the impression that he was defined by the legacy of his parents, who were two of the most iconic figures in the history of music, and that he had very little room to forge his own path. A period of self-doubt and a feeling of isolation were brought on as a result of this internal conflict. John admitted that he had the sensation that he was constantly living in the shadow of another person. "The fact that I was always referred to as Johnny Cash's son was something that I considered to be both a privilege and a burden." The revelation that John made about his own struggle with addiction was probably the one that took everyone by surprise the most. In more ways than one, John struggled with substance abuse, a struggle that was similar to Johnny's earlier years. This struggle was a reflection of Johnny's own struggles with substance abuse. It was a means of numbing the pain and escaping the enormous pressures that he was under, according to his description. Nevertheless, John, just like his father, eventually sought assistance, which allowed him to make a change in his life and make a commitment to sobriety. His road to recovery has been a long and challenging one, but it has also been a demonstration of his resiliency and determination throughout the entire process. A man who has endured profound loss, personal struggles, and the unrelenting pressure of carrying on a legendary legacy is revealed by these heartbreaking details, which reveal a side of John Carter Cash that many fans had never seen before. Despite everything that has happened, John has emerged stronger, using his suffering as a source of inspiration to create, heal, and connect with other people. He has a story that is filled with heartbreak, but it is also a story of hope and perseverance. In response to John Carter Cash's revelations about the tragic events that occurred in his life, people all over the world expressed a range of emotions, including appreciation, sympathy, and shock. For a long time, fans of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash had regarded their family as a pillar of perseverance and artistry. However, John's candid revelations provided a glimpse into the pain and struggles that had been concealed behind the public facade. Almost immediately, and to an overwhelming degree, the public showed their support for the cause. Supporters took to various social media platforms to convey their admiration for John's courageous decision to share his story. A great number of people lauded his honesty, pointing out how challenging it must have been for him to disclose such private and distressing experiences. According to the words of one of the fans, "It takes incredible strength to speak so openly about these struggles." Others drew parallels between John's journey and that of his father, viewing his resiliency as a testament to the enduring strength of the Cash family. John Carter Cash is a reminder that even those who appear to have everything still face battles we can't see, said one of the people. Additionally, the music community came together in support of John, with other musicians and working professionals in the industry praising his bravery. In a public statement, longtime friends of the Cash family, such as Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson, expressed their support and emphasized the significance of removing the stigma that is associated with mental health and addiction. It was shared by Christopherson that John's story is a powerful reminder that no one is immune to the challenges that life has to offer. Because he is speaking out, he is assisting a great number of other people who may be struggling in silence. With a mixture of sorrow and solidarity, the Cash family responded to John's revelations when they were made public. The family became closer to one another as a result of his openness, which also encouraged more in-depth conversations about the challenges and experiences they had in common. John Cash's words brought solace to relatives who had also experienced the burden of the Cash legacy. They recognized their own feelings in his journey and found comfort in John's words. Through their collaborative efforts, they have been able to provide support to one another, thereby strengthening the familial bonds that have always been at the core of their resilience. It is possible that the most heartfelt response came from the devoted followers of John's parents, who passed away. A lot of people thought that John's journey was a continuation of Johnny and June's story, which was a story about overcoming adversity, finding redemption, and the ability of music to heal. The public's admiration for the Cash family has only grown as a result of his willingness to share his suffering, which has helped to solidify their legacy not only as music legends, but also as symbols of perseverance in the face of adversity. John Carter Cash has not only honored the legacy of his family by sharing his story, but he has also created a space for others to confront their own struggles, which has inspired a wave of compassion and understanding. John Carter Cash is a living example of resilience and renewal who continues to inspire people today. His personal struggles, the tragedies that befell his family, and the immense pressure of carrying on the Cash legacy have all contributed to his discovery of a sense of peace and purpose after years of navigating these challenges. Even though he is now in his early 50s, John continues to pay tribute to the memory of his parents while simultaneously constructing a legacy of his own, one that is based on creativity, healing, and family. John Carter Cash's life today is a blend of professional success and personal fulfillment. As a musician, author, and producer, he continues to impact the music industry while preserving the legacy of his parents, Johnny and June Carter Cash. Through his books, John provides intimate insights into their lives, adding his unique voice to their story. On a personal level, John embraces fatherhood, finding joy and purpose in raising his family. He strives to pass on the values instilled by his parents: resilience, compassion, and a deep love for music. Despite challenges, his focus remains on creating a nurturing environment for his children, ensuring the Cash legacy endures. John's journey of overcoming addiction and grief has inspired many, proving that hope and renewal are possible even in the face of profound loss. More than a custodian of his family's history, John exemplifies resilience, creativity, and the enduring power of love and music. His openness about his struggles with addiction, grief, and mental health resonates deeply with fans worldwide, offering a message of healing and perseverance. John's story reminds us that even in life's toughest moments, a path forward is always within reach. Regarding the journey that John Carter Cash took and the legacy that the Cash family has left behind, what are your thoughts? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. We'd be delighted to hear your point of view. Do not forget to hit the notification bell, like this video, and subscribe to our channel if you found this in-depth look into the life of a music legend's son to be enjoyable. Keep an eye out for additional fascinating tales about the private lives of your favorite celebrities and public figures.